Hola mi gente, welcome back to Latine ADHD, the podcast where cultura and ADHD intersect. I'm your host, Dr. Janice Castro, a licensed psychologist here to help you feel a little more seen and less alone. As always, this podcast is for education and community, not a replacement for therapy. Earlier this season 5, we've been talking about why trusting yourself can be hard, especially when you've learned to push past your limits. Today, we're shifting the focus to talk about what happens inside your body and your brain when pushing becomes unsustainable. Because burnout isn't a personal failure, it's a signal. Burnout often gets described in very vague or moral ways. People say things like, I just can't handle this stress, I'm not cut out for this, or I should be able to do more. Clinically speaking, burnout isn't about weakness or just having poor coping. Burnout happens when the demands on your nervous system exceed your available capacity for too long. What is capacity? Capacity includes your mental energy, your emotional regulation, your attention, your sensory tolerance, and your recovery time. When those systems are stretched past their limits repeatedly, the nervous system, which is your brain, your body, it adapts by slowing things down, not to punish you, to protect you. Here's where it helps to be specific about ADHD. For many people with ADHD, everyday tasks require more executive energy, the kind of energy used for starting tasks, shifting focus, organizing information, filtering distractions. On top of that, many people with ADHD are constantly compensating to appear organized, masking overwhelm, managing sensory input like noise, lights, crowds. All of that adds up. So when burnout shows up, it often doesn't look like giving up or checking out. Instead, it can look like task paralysis, which is knowing what needs to be done. You know the steps, but you feel unable to start. ADHD traits get louder, more distractibility, forgetfulness, or more time blindness than usual, emotional overload, so that could be irritability, frustration, or shame that feels out of proportion. Feeling overwhelmed by small demands like emails, phone calls, appointments, text messages. Physical symptoms like headaches, muscle tension, fatigue, or disrupted sleep. One of the most confusing parts of ADHD burnout is this. You may still care very deeply about your work, your relationships, and your responsibilities, but feel unable to act the way you want. And that gap between caring and capacity can be incredibly painful. A common misunderstanding is that burnout means you've lost motivation. But for many people with ADHD, motivation isn't gone. What's missing is access to your focus, follow through, emotional regulation, and mental flexibility. When your nervous system is overloaded, it prioritizes conservation. That's why simple decisions feel exhausting. Small tasks feel impossible. Your brain feels foggy or offline. This isn't your brain refusing to cooperate. It's your brain conserving energy. When people talk about burnout, they're often talking about one common version. In more typical burnout, people describe feeling detached. They feel numb, cynical, emotionally checked out. It can feel like shutting down to protect yourself from stress. You might still show up, but without energy or connection. ADHD burnout can feel different and sometimes confusing. Instead of feeling numb right away, many people with ADHD feel overwhelmed. They feel emotionally flooded, frustrated with themselves, ashamed for not being able to keep up. And sometimes both can happen. You might feel flooded one moment irritated, anxious, on edge, and then numb the next, like your brain just goes blank. What's important here is why this happens. In more typical burnout, motivation often fades because the person feels drained, disillusioned, disconnected. With rest and changes in their environment, energy slowly comes back. In ADHD burnout, motivation is often still there. You may still care deeply. You may still want to show up, but your brain is running out of fuel. Living with ADHD often means using more mental energy to plan, focus, and organize. And you're constantly compensating to keep up. You're managing strong emotions and sensory input. When that system gets overworked for too long, it hits a wall. So if running out of energy gets mistaken for a motivation problem, the response becomes try harder, push more, just do the thing. And that's like pressing the gas pedal when the tank is already empty. A more accurate way to think about ADHD burnout is this. This isn't that you don't care or you need to try harder. This is that your brain is tapped out and needs different support and recovery to function again. Because I'm about to talk about the importance of listening to your body. This is where I want to slow things down for a bit, because when people hear listen to your body, it can feel very abstract and not everybody knows what that means, especially if you've spent years pushing past discomfort. Listening to your body doesn't mean you're going to quit your job out of nowhere because you're stressed, or you cancel everything in your life because you're overwhelmed, or making dramatic impulsive changes. Body trust often starts with noticing patterns. For example, when does your focus drop first? What types of tasks drain you faster? How long does it take to recover after intense effort? Listening is not about fixing yet. It's about gathering information without judgment. I want to leave you with a few questions to sit with, not action steps, because we're just listening to yourself, right? There's no pressure to change anything right now. What feels harder than it should lately? What tasks drain you more than they used to? These signals aren't inconveniences. It's your body and your mind communicating. Sometimes people don't notice burnout until the body forces a stop. In the next episode, you'll hear from somebody whose body made that decision for her and how she learned to rebuild trust after burnout. This season is about learning to believe in yourself again. Thank you for being here. If this episode resonated, consider sharing it with somebody who feels stuck between caring deeply and feeling worn out. Until next time.